The rain tasted like copper and fear. Viviana Bellucci's breath came in short, fractured gasps as she pressed herself against the cold brick wall of the alley, her fingers trembling so violently she could barely grip her phone. The screen was cracked, shattered 3 days ago when Julian had ripped it from her hands and thrown it across her apartment before she'd run. Before she'd finally understood that staying meant dying. The city hummed around her, oblivious. Car horns. Distant laughter from the restaurant across the street. The click of heels on wet pavement. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. Sounds that belonged to people who weren't being hunted. She didn't belong to that world anymore. Viviana. His voice cut through the rain like a blade, and her entire body locked up. Julian. He was close. Too close. She could hear his footsteps now, methodical and unhurried, the sound of a man who knew his prey had nowhere left to run. I know you're here, baby. I can feel you. Her stomach twisted. Baby. He'd called her that the first time he hit her too. The first time he'd locked the door and told her she was overreacting. The first time he'd pressed his hands around her throat and whispered that he loved her too much to ever let her go. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to a story that's about to grip your heart and refuse to let go. Before we dive in, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. New York? London? Tokyo? I love hearing from you all. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Trust me. Now, let's get back to Viviana, because right now, she's out of time. She scanned the alley. Dead end. Of course it was a dead end. Every decision she'd made in the past 72 hours had led her here, trapped like an animal with nowhere to go but back toward the man who wanted to own her bones. Her hands were slick with rain and sweat as she fumbled with her phone, trying to unlock it, trying to call someone, anyone, but the screen flickered and died. Dead battery. Perfect. There you are. Viviana's head snapped up. Julian stood at the mouth of the alley, backlit by the neon glow of the street behind him. He looked the same as always, sharp jawline, expensive suit, that smile that had once made her feel special and now only made her skin crawl. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he was tired of solving. You look terrible, Viv, he said, his tone almost gentle. Almost concerned. Have you been sleeping? Eating? You know you don't think straight when you don't take care of yourself. Stay away from me. Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. Hated that even now, even after everything, he could still make her feel small. Julian took a step forward. Then another. I've been patient. I've given you space. But this? He gestured around the alley, his expression darkening. Running away like some scared little girl. That's not you. That's not us. There is no us. The words ripped out of her, raw and desperate. There never was. You're sick, Julian. You need help. His smile vanished. The only thing I need, he said quietly, is you. And I'm taking you home. Tonight. Viviana's back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to go. Her mind raced, searching for an escape, a weapon, anything, but there was nothing. Just rain and brick and the man who'd promised to love her until it killed her. Julian was 5 feet away when the world shifted. The alley flooded with light, headlights from the street, and the low purr of an engine cut through the rain. A car. Black. Sleek. Expensive in a way that didn't belong in this part of the city. It stopped just beyond the alley entrance, and for a moment, everything went still. Then the door opened. Viviana didn't think. Didn't hesitate. She ran. Her legs burned as she sprinted past Julian, who reached for her, his fingers grazing her sleeve, but she twisted away, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. She didn't know who was in that car. Didn't care. Anything was better than staying here. She burst out of the alley and collided with something solid. Not something. Someone. The impact should have knocked her down, but strong hands caught her arms, steadying her before she could fall. Viviana gasped, her vision blurred with rain and tears, and looked up. The man was tall. Impossibly tall. Dark hair slicked back, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so cold they could have frozen the rain mid-fall. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been tailored to his body, and when he looked down at her, his expression was utterly unreadable. "Please," Viviana whispered, her voice breaking. "Please help me." The man's gaze flicked past her to Julian, who had stopped at the mouth of the alley, his face twisted with fury. For a moment, neither man spoke. They just stared at each other, and Viviana felt the air between them crackle with something dangerous. Something lethal. Then the stranger's hand moved to the small of her back, pulling her closer. Not rough. Not gentle. Just, certain. "Get in the car," he said. His voice was low, smooth, and left no room for argument. "She's with me." Julian's voice cut through the rain, sharp and possessive. He took a step forward, his hands clenched into fists. "Viviana, get away from him. Now." The stranger didn't move. Didn't even blink. He simply angled his body so that Viviana was behind him, shielded from Julian's line of sight. And then he spoke, his tone so calm it was almost casual. "No. She's not." Julian's face flushed red. "Do you have any idea who I am? I'm Julian Cross. My family. I know who you are." The stranger's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "And I know your family. They're nothing." Viviana felt Julian's rage before she saw it, the way his entire body tensed, the way his hand moved toward his jacket. Gun. He had a gun. But the stranger was faster. In one fluid motion, he stepped forward, closing the distance between them so quickly that Julian didn't have time to react. Viviana couldn't see what happened, only that the stranger leaned in close, his mouth near Julian's ear, and whispered something that made all the color drain from Julian's face. When the stranger stepped back, Julian stumbled, his hand falling away from his jacket. He looked at Viviana, then at the stranger, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw fear in his eyes. "This isn't over," Julian said, his voice shaking. But he was already backing away, retreating into the shadows like a wounded animal. The stranger watched him go, his expression unchanged. Then he turned to Viviana, and those cold eyes softened, just barely, just enough. "You're safe now, little one." The words hit her like a punch to the chest. She didn't know why. Didn't understand why this stranger's voice made her knees weak, why his presence made her feel both terrified and protected all at once. "Who are you?" she whispered. The stranger tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. Then he reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "Alessandro Moretti," he said simply. "And you just became my problem." Before Viviana could process what that meant, Alessandro's hand wrapped around hers, and he led her to the waiting car. The door opened. She hesitated, her mind screaming at her to run, to question, to do anything but trust this man. But when she looked back at the alley where Julian had disappeared, she knew the truth. Running was over. Hiding was over. All she had left was this stranger and the terrifying certainty that getting into his car would change everything. Alessandro's voice was soft, almost amused. "Are you coming, or do I need to carry you?" Viviana took a breath. And stepped into the car. The car smelled like leather and something darker, gunpowder, maybe, or the faint metallic tang of old violence. Viviana pressed herself against the door, her fingers finding the handle even though she knew jumping out at 50 miles per hour would be suicide. Still. Options. She needed options. Alessandro sat across from her in the spacious back seat, one leg crossed over the other, looking entirely too comfortable for a man who just threatened someone into oblivion with a whisper. He hadn't looked at her once since the car started moving. Instead, he stared out the window, his profile sharp and unforgiving in the passing streetlights. The driver, a massive man with a scar running down his neck, hadn't spoken either. Nobody spoke. Just the hum of the engine and Viviana's racing heartbeat filling the silence. She needed to say something. Needed to understand what she just walked into. Where are we going? Alessandro's eyes slid to her, lazy and assessing. Somewhere Julian Cross won't be stupid enough to follow. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. His voice was smooth, unbothered, like her fear was a mildly interesting inconvenience. You're wet. Cold. Probably haven't eaten in days. His gaze dropped to her trembling hands. When's the last time you slept? Viviana's throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to tell him she was fine, but the truth was written all over her, in the dark circles under her eyes, the way her clothes hung loose on her frame, the fact that she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt safe enough to close her eyes. I don't know, she whispered. Something flickered in Alessandro's expression. Not quite sympathy. Something colder. More calculated. Then sleep. We have a 20-minute drive. I'm not sleeping in a stranger's car. I'm not a stranger anymore. His lips curved slightly. I'm Alessandro Moretti. And you know exactly who that is, don't you? She did. God help her, she did. Everyone in the city knew the Moretti name. They didn't say it out loud, not unless they wanted attention they couldn't afford, but it lived in whispers and warnings. The Moretti family controlled everything that mattered, the docks, the unions, half the police force, and every politician who wanted to keep their job. They were ghosts in expensive suits, and Alessandro was their king. Which meant Viviana had just traded one monster for another. Why did you help me? Her voice came out stronger than she felt. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming once against his knee, the only sign that he was thinking at all. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. Dangerous. Julian Cross put his hands on you. It wasn't a question. Viviana's breath caught. She hadn't said anything. Hadn't mentioned the bruises hidden beneath her sleeves or the finger-shaped marks that had finally faded from her throat. How did he? I can see it, Alessandro said, as if reading her mind. The way you hold yourself. The way you flinch when someone moves too fast. You're not just running from him, little one. You're running from what he did to you. Tears burned behind Viviana's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She was so tired of crying. So tired of being broken. He said he loved me, she whispered. He said I made him do it. That if I just listened, if I just stopped making him angry. He lied. Alessandro's voice cut through her spiral like a blade. Men like Julian Cross don't love. They consume. And when you tried to leave, he couldn't accept that his possession had a will of its own. His eyes locked onto hers, burning with an intensity that made her chest tighten. But you're not his anymore. As of tonight, you're under my protection. Which means if he comes near you again, I'll kill him. The word should have terrified her. Should have sent her scrambling for the door. But instead, For the first time in months, Viviana felt something like relief. "Why?" she asked again. "Why do you care?" Alessandro leaned forward, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Close enough that his presence swallowed all the air in the car. "Because I hate men who hurt women," he said quietly. "And because the look in your eyes when you ran to me. I've seen it before. In my sister." Viviana's heart stuttered. "Your sister?" Alessandro's jaw tightened, and just like that, the mask slipped back into place. He leaned back, the moment gone. "We're here." The car stopped in front of a building that looked like it had been carved from shadows and steel, sleek, modern, and completely out of place in this industrial part of the city. Armed men stood at the entrance, their eyes tracking the car with the precision of predators. The driver opened Viviana's door, and she stepped out on shaking legs. Alessandro was beside her in an instant, his hand settling on the small of her back, not pushing, just there. A presence. A claim. "This is one of my properties," he said as they walked toward the entrance. "No one gets in without my permission. You'll stay here until Julian is dealt with." "Dealt with?" Viviana's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Alessandro glanced at her, and for just a second, she saw something almost amused in his expression. "It means you let me worry about Julian Cross. You focus on remembering what it feels like to breathe." The apartment, if you could call it that, was bigger than Viviana's entire childhood home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and everything was decorated in shades of black, gray, and deep blue. Expensive. Impersonal. Like a museum exhibit titled, "How a Dangerous Man Lives." Alessandro moved through the space with the ease of someone who owned the ground beneath his feet. He shrugged out of his jacket, revealing a crisp white shirt that did nothing to hide the muscles beneath, and draped it over a chair. "There's a bedroom through that door," he said, nodding toward the hallway. "Clothes in the closet. Bathroom stocked. Help yourself to whatever you need." Viviana stood frozen in the entryway, her arms wrapped around herself. This didn't make sense. None of it made sense. "I don't understand," she said. "You don't just take in random women off the street. What do you want from me?" Alessandro poured himself a drink, whiskey, neat, and took a slow sip before answering. "I want you to stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you. You're a mafia boss. I am. You've killed people. Many. And I'm supposed to just trust you." Alessandro set down his glass and crossed to her, his movements deliberate. Slow. He stopped just close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "No," he said softly. "You're supposed to survive. Trust is optional." Before Viviana could respond, the door burst open. A woman stormed in, mid-twenties, dark hair wild around her shoulders, wearing combat boots and a leather jacket that screamed danger. She stopped when she saw Viviana, her eyes narrowing. "Who the hell is this?" Alessandro didn't even turn around. "Ivy. Manners. Manners? You bring a stranger into our safe house and you want me to..." Ivy cut herself off, her gaze sharpening as she studied Viviana. Then her expression softened. "Just barely. She's running." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Alessandro said. Ivy walked closer, circling Viviana like a predator assessing prey. Then she stopped, crossed her arms, and looked at her brother. "From who?" "Julian Cross." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Ivy's face went carefully blank. "The DA's son? The one who's been playing at being dangerous while Daddy cleans up his messes? That's the one. And you brought her here because..." "Because he put his hands on her." Repeatedly. Alessandro's voice was ice. And because she's ours now. Viviana's head spun. I'm not, I didn't agree to be anyone's. Too late. Ivy's smile was sharp as broken glass. You ran to a Moretti. That makes you family. And we protect family. She glanced at Alessandro. Julian's not going to let this go. I know. His father's going to make noise. Let him. Ivy studied her brother for a long moment, then shrugged. Your funeral. I'll put eyes on Cross. See what he's planning. She headed for the door, then paused and looked back at Viviana. Welcome to the family, sweetheart. Try not to die. And then she was gone. Viviana's legs finally gave out. She sank onto the nearest chair, her hands shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Alessandro knelt in front of her, bringing himself to her eye level. Up close, she could see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow. The way his dark eyes weren't entirely cold, there was something else there, something that looked almost like understanding. Listen to me, Viviana. Her name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. Julian Cross is dangerous because he's unpredictable. Because he thinks the world owes him whatever he wants. But I'm dangerous because I'm not. His hand covered both of hers, warm and steady. I don't lose control. I don't make mistakes. And I sure as hell don't let people take what's mine. I'm not yours. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, and the gentleness of it nearly broke her. You became mine the second you hid behind me. The second you looked at me with those terrified eyes and asked for help. You just didn't know it yet. Viviana should have been afraid. Should have run. But instead, she found herself leaning closer, drawn to the certainty in his voice, the absolute conviction that he could keep her safe when she'd spent so long believing safety was a lie. What did you say to him? She whispered. In the alley. What did you whisper to Julian that made him leave? Alessandro's smile was slow and absolutely lethal. I told him that if he ever came near you again, I'd send his body back to his father in pieces small enough to fit in a jewelry box. And I'd make sure he was alive for most of it. Viviana's breath caught. She should have been horrified. Should have. Her phone, the one she thought was dead, buzzed in her pocket. With trembling hands, she pulled it out. The screen flickered to life just long enough for her to see the message. Julian *, you can't hide behind him forever, Viv. He'll get bored. And when he does, I'll be waiting. You're mine. You've always been mine. And I'm coming to take you home. The phone slipped from her fingers. Alessandro caught it before it hit the ground, read the message, and his expression went utterly blank. When he looked up at her, Viviana saw something she hadn't seen before, not just anger, but fury. Cold, calculated, and absolutely terrifying. Change of plans, he said softly. You're not staying here. You're staying with me. In my home. Where I can see you. Always. Alessandro. He stood, pulling her up with him, and his hands framed her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. He just made his last mistake, little one, Alessandro whispered. And I'm going to make him regret every second he ever touched you. Alessandro's home wasn't a home, it was a fortress disguised as a penthouse. Viviana stood in the marble entryway, watching as armed men positioned themselves at every entrance, their movements synchronized and silent. The space was massive, all dark wood and steel, with artwork that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. But it was the view that stole her breath, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city, glittering like broken glass in the darkness. Your room is upstairs, Alessandro said, his hand still resting on her lower back. He'd kept it there since they left his safe house, a constant reminder that she was under his protection. Under his control. Second door on the left. Ivy had clothes sent over. They should fit. Viviana turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. I can't stay here. This is too much. I should just run. Alessandro's eyebrow arched. Where exactly would you go, Viviana? Back to your apartment that Julian has keys to? To a friend's place he already knows about? To a hotel he can track with a single phone call to his father's contacts? He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You're out of places to hide. So you stay here. With me. Where I can keep you breathing. Why do you even care? The question burst out of her, raw and desperate. You don't know me. I'm nobody to you. Something dangerous flickered across Alessandro's face. He reached out, his fingers catching a strand of her still damp hair, tucking it behind her ear with a gentleness that made her chest ache. You're not nobody, he said quietly. Not anymore. Before Viviana could process what that meant, a throat cleared behind them. A man emerged from the shadows, late 50s, gray at his temples, wearing a suit that screamed old money and older violence. His eyes were the same dark brown as Alessandro's, but harder. Colder. Father, Alessandro said, his tone carefully neutral. I wasn't expecting you tonight. Clearly. The older man's gaze slid to Viviana, assessing her like a potential investment. This is the girl. The one you started a war over. Viviana's stomach dropped. War. Alessandro's jaw tightened. There's no war, father. Just a message being sent. A message. His father, Viviana assumed this was Antonio Moretti, the head of the family, laughed, but there was no humor in it. You threatened the district attorney's son. You put the Moretti name on the line for a woman you met 3 hours ago. That's not a message, Alessandro. That's a declaration. Julian Cross is a dead man walking. He just doesn't know it yet. Julian Cross is protected by his father's position and the Rossi family's alliance. You touch him, and Vincent Rossi will see it as an act of aggression against his interests. Antonio's voice hardened. We don't need that attention right now. Not with the shipment coming in next week. Alessandro's expression didn't change, but Viviana felt the temperature drop. The shipment will be fine. And Julian Cross will learn that there are consequences for hunting women through my city. Your city. Antonio's smile was sharp. You're my son, Alessandro. My heir. But you don't own this city yet. And you don't make decisions that risk everything we've built over some girl with. Careful. Alessandro's voice was soft. Lethal. Very careful how you finish that sentence. Father and son stared at each other, and Viviana suddenly understood that she was watching a power struggle that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with who controlled the Moretti empire. Antonio finally looked away first. She stays out of sight. No public appearances. No connection to our family that can be traced. And if Julian Cross backs off, you let him walk. Understood? No. The single word hung in the air like a gunshot. Antonio's face flushed red. Alessandro. Julian Cross threatened what's mine. There's no scenario where he walks away from that breathing. Alessandro's hand found Viviana's waist, pulling her against his side. She's under my protection. Which means she's under the family's protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. Personally. For a long moment, Antonio said nothing. Then he shook his head, something almost like respect flickering in his eyes. You're more like your mother than I realized. Stubborn. Reckless. Willing to burn everything for the people you claim. He headed for the door, then paused. Just make sure you don't actually burn everything, son. Some ashes don't rebuild. When the door closed behind him, Viviana finally remembered how to breathe. He's right, isn't he? I'm going to get you killed. Alessandro turned her to face him, his hands framing her face. No one is dying. Except possibly Julian Cross, depending on how stupid he decides to be. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones, and she realized she was shaking. Look at me, Viviana. She did. She looked up into those dark, dangerous eyes and saw something that terrified her more than Julian ever had. She saw certainty. Absolute, unwavering certainty that Alessandro Moretti would tear the world apart before he let anyone hurt her. I've spent my entire life in this world, he said softly. I've survived attempts on my life since I was 16. I've gone to war with families that had 3 times our resources. I've built this empire on blood and calculation and never, ever letting anyone see me weak. His forehead pressed against hers. But when I saw you in that alley, when you looked at me like I was salvation instead of damnation, something changed. And I don't know what to do with that. Viviana's heart hammered against her ribs. Alessandro. His phone buzzed. Then again. Then it didn't stop. Alessandro pulled back, his expression shifting from vulnerable to lethal in a heartbeat. He checked the screen and his jaw clenched. Get upstairs. Now. What's happening? Viviana. Upstairs. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me or Ivy. The fear in his voice, carefully controlled but there, sent ice through her veins. She ran. Viviana pressed her ear against the bedroom door, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear the voices downstairs. Men. Multiple. And they were arguing. Lost your damn mind, Alessandro. That was a new voice. Young. Angry. Liam, I don't have time for. You don't have time. Julian Cross just posted a $10 million bounty on social media. Not the dark web. Social. Media. Every wannabe gangster and desperate idiot in the city now thinks they can make their fortune by bringing him Viviana Bellucci. Dead or alive. Viviana's knees gave out. She slid down the door, her hands pressed over her mouth to keep from screaming. $10 million. Julian had put a price on her head. A public price. I'll handle it. How? Liam's voice cracked. Half the city is already mobilizing. We've got reports of 3 separate groups heading toward known Moretti properties. They think if they can't get to her, they can negotiate. And the Rossi family just sent a message. They want a meeting. Tonight. They're saying you've lost control. That you're compromised. That. I said I'll handle it. By doing what? Starting a war you can't win. For a woman you just met. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Alessandro's voice, so soft it was barely audible, yes. Viviana heard footsteps. Then the bedroom door opened, she scrambled back, but it was too late. Alessandro stood there, his expression carved from stone, and behind him, she could see at least 8 armed men filling his living room. You heard, he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, unable to speak past the terror clogging her throat. Alessandro knelt in front of her, his hands covering hers. I need you to listen very carefully. In about 30 minutes, representatives from 3 families are coming here. They're going to offer me deals. Alliances. Money. All in exchange for you. Then give me to them. The words tasted like ash. I'm not worth. Don't. His grip tightened. Don't you dare finish that sentence. You are worth everything, Viviana. Everything. And I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let Julian Cross or anyone else touch you. But your family will follow my lead. Or they won't. Either way, you stay with me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why? Why are you doing this? Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph, old, faded, creased from being carried for years. He handed it to her. The girl in the photo was maybe 16, dark hair and laughing eyes, standing next to a younger Alessandro. They had the same smile. The same stubborn jaw. My sister, Alessandro said quietly. Isabella. She fell in love with the wrong man when she was 17. He seemed perfect. Charming. Successful. By the time we realized what he really was, what he was doing to her, it was too late. Viviana's hands shook. What happened? She tried to leave him. Just like you tried to leave Julian. And he couldn't accept that his possession had a will of its own. Alessandro's voice was hollow. Empty. She disappeared 3 years ago. We found her body 2 weeks later. Oh God. Alessandro, I'm so. I swore on her grave that I would never let another woman suffer like she did. That if I ever had the power to stop it, I would. No matter the cost. He cupped her face, his touch infinitely gentle. So when I saw you in that alley, when I saw that same fear in your eyes that I saw in Isabella's, there was never a choice, Viviana. There was only you. Only keeping you safe. Only making sure Julian Cross never gets the chance to do to you what Isabella's monster did to her. Viviana couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. She just threw her arms around Alessandro's neck and held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had gone completely insane. He held her back just as tightly. I won't let them take you, he whispered against her hair. I don't care how many of them come. I don't care what it costs. You're mine to protect. And I've never failed at anything I've set my mind to. A knock at the door downstairs. Then Ivy's voice, sharp and urgent, they're here. All 3 families. And Alessandro? They brought armies. Alessandro pulled back, his eyes searching Viviana's face. Stay here. No matter what you hear. No matter what happens. You stay in this room until I come back for you. And if you don't come back. His smile was slow and absolutely terrifying. Then Ivy will get you out. She has instructions. Money. Everything you need to disappear. He stood, heading for the door. But I'm coming back, little one. That's a promise. Alessandro, wait. He turned. Viviana crossed to him, rose on her tiptoes, and pressed her lips to his cheek. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For seeing me. For. Alessandro's hand cupped the back of her head, and he kissed her. Really kissed her. It was fierce and possessive and gentle all at once, a claiming that had nothing to do with ownership and everything to do with protection. With choice. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. That, he said softly, is what you get when this is over. And a lot more besides. So I'm definitely coming back. Then he was gone, the door locking behind him with a finality that made Viviana's heart shatter. She pressed her ear against the wood and listened to Alessandro Moretti go to war. For her. The voices downstairs started calm. Professional. The kind of dangerous civility that preceded bloodshed. Viviana sat on the floor, her back pressed against the locked door, straining to hear every word. She'd turned off all the lights, as if darkness could somehow make her invisible to the threat gathering below. Alessandro. The voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge like polished steel. Always a pleasure. Though I wish the circumstances were different. Vincent. Alessandro's tone was flat. Unreadable. You brought quite the entourage. As did Roman and Cole. We all felt the situation warranted, a show of force. A pause. You've created quite the problem, my friend. I've solved the problem. Julian Cross is a rabid dog. Someone needed to put him down. Laughter. Multiple voices. None of it friendly. That's where we disagree, a new voice cut in, deeper, rougher. Roman, Viviana guessed. Julian Cross is protected by treaties older than you are. His father is the DA. You can't just threaten. I didn't threaten. I promised. Alessandro's voice dropped to something lethal. He put his hands on an innocent woman. Repeatedly. Hunted her through my city. Put a bounty on her head like she's a prize to be collected. And you're here to tell me I should let that stand? We're here, Vincent said carefully, to offer solutions. The girl isn't worth a war, Alessandro. Be reasonable. The silence that followed made Viviana's blood run cold. Say that again. Alessandro's voice was so quiet she almost couldn't hear it. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Tell me again that she's not worth it. Alessandro, I'm trying to help you. Vincent sighed. We all are. You're young. Brilliant. Your father's rightful heir. But you're making decisions with your heart instead of your head, and that's going to get you killed. Then I'll die protecting her. But Julian Cross dies first. It's not just Julian anymore. Cole's voice exploded. Don't you understand? The bounty is public. Every criminal, every desperate fool with a gun is coming for her. You can't protect her from the entire city. Even you aren't that good. Watch me. For God's sake. Vincent's composure finally cracked. We're offering you an out. Give us the girl. We'll hand her over to Julian. He takes her out of the state, and this all goes away. No war. No bloodshed. Your position as heir remains secure. Your father stays neutral. Everyone wins. Everyone except Viviana. She's nobody, Alessandro. A waitress from the south side who got herself involved with the wrong man. This isn't Romeo and Juliet. This is you throwing away an empire for a woman you met yesterday. Viviana heard something crash. Glass, maybe. Or furniture. Get out. Alessandro's voice was pure ice. All of you. Get out of my home before I forget we have treaties. Alessandro. Out. Footsteps. Shuffling. Low, angry murmurs. Then Vincent's voice, one last time, you have until midnight tomorrow to reconsider. After that, the families vote. And I promise you, the vote won't go your way. Think about what you're sacrificing. Think about Isabella. The door slammed. Silence. Then the sound of something breaking. Again. And again. Alessandro was destroying his own living room, and Viviana could hear the rage and frustration in every shattered piece. Finally, it stopped. Viviana waited, her heart hammering, until she heard footsteps on the stairs. The door unlocked. Alessandro stood there, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked lost. His knuckles were bleeding. His shirt was untucked. His carefully controlled mask had cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. They want me to give you up, he said quietly. Trade you to Julian for peace. I heard. And they're right. Strategically, politically, it's the smart move. It would solve everything. Viviana's chest constricted. Then do it. Alessandro's eyes snapped to hers, blazing. What? Give me to them. I can't let you destroy everything for me. Your family, your position, He crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like fury and something else. Something that felt dangerously like devotion. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I'm not giving you up. Not to them. Not to Julian. Not to anyone. Do you understand me, Viviana? You're mine. And I protect what's mine. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then. Viviana's phone, still miraculously holding a charge, buzzed. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Julian *midnight tomorrow. That's when the families vote. That's when Alessandro loses everything he's ever worked for. All because of you. You really want his blood on your hands, Viv? Come to me. Now. The parking garage on 5th and Main. Alone. And I'll call off the bounty. I'll tell the families to back down. I'll save him. All you have to do is choose me. Like you were always supposed to. Viviana's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. Alessandro read the message over her shoulder, and she felt him go absolutely still. No. Alessandro. I said no. It's a trap. Obviously a trap. He'll kill you the second you show up. Or he'll keep his word and end this. You heard Vincent. The families are voting tomorrow. They're going to strip you of everything. Your inheritance. Your protection. Maybe even your life. Tears streamed down her face. I can't let that happen. Not for me. Not when there's a way to fix this. By sacrificing yourself. That's not fixing, Viviana. That's suicide. It's my choice. Like hell it is. Alessandro's hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. You think I saved you just to watch you walk back to your executioner? You think I kissed you, held you, promised to protect you, so you could throw yourself on Julian Cross's mercy? His voice broke. I can't lose you. I won't. Not like I lost Isabella. Not when I finally found. He cut himself off, but Viviana heard what he didn't say. Found what? She whispered. Alessandro's thumb brushed away her tears. Someone worth burning the world for. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. Viviana hadn't slept. Neither had Alessandro. They'd sat in his destroyed living room, surrounded by broken glass and shattered furniture, and talked. Really talked. About Isabella. About Viviana's childhood. About how they'd both learned too young that love could be a weapon. Somewhere around 4 a.m., Viviana had fallen asleep against Alessandro's shoulder, and when she'd woken at dawn, he was still there, his arms around her, his chin resting on her head. I have a plan, he said quietly. Viviana sat up, rubbing her eyes. What kind of plan? The kind where we both survive and Julian Cross doesn't. Alessandro stood, offering her his hand. But I need you to trust me. Completely. Can you do that? She thought about it. Really thought about it. This man was a killer. A criminal. Everything her rational mind said she should run from. But he was also the first person in years who'd seen her pain and chosen to carry it with her instead of adding to it. Yes, she said. I trust you. Alessandro's smile was small but genuine. Then let's end this. 2 hours later, Viviana stood in Alessandro's office while he made calls. Not threats this time. Offers. Alliances. He was rebuilding the board, shifting pieces, creating a game where Julian Cross couldn't win. Ivy burst through the door, her laptop open. "You need to see this." She turned the screen around. It was security footage from the parking garage Julian had mentioned. And it showed exactly what Alessandro had predicted: Julian wasn't alone. He had at least 15 armed men positioned throughout the structure. "It gets worse," Ivy said grimly. "I hacked his email. He's been coordinating with Roman. The whole 'come to me and I'll call off the family's' thing. It's garbage. Roman wants you dead, Alessandro. He's been wanting your position for years. This is his excuse." Alessandro didn't even blink. "Expected. What else? The bounty's up to 15 million now. And there's chatter that someone's going to try to hit this building. Tonight. Before the vote. Also expected. Countermeasures. In place. But Alessandro." Ivy's voice softened. "Even if we survive tonight, tomorrow the families vote. Father won't protect you. Not if it means war with Vincent and Roman. You'll be on your own. I've been on my own before. Not like this. Not completely cut off from Ivy." Alessandro's voice was gentle. "Final. I've made my choice. Now help me see it through." For a long moment, brother and sister just looked at each other. Then Ivy nodded. "Always." She glanced at Viviana. "You better be worth it." "She is," Alessandro said before Viviana could respond. The afternoon blurred into preparation. Alessandro's men fortified the building. Weapons were distributed. Escape routes were planned. And through it all, Alessandro kept Viviana close, as if afraid she'd disappear if he looked away. At 6 p.m., Liam brought news. "Julian's moving. He's got a convoy heading toward the garage. He actually thinks she's coming." Alessandro's smile was predatory. "Good. Let him wait. Let him get comfortable in his trap. Then we'll spring ours." "What's your play?" Liam asked. "Simple. We give him what he wants." Alessandro looked at Viviana. "We give him you." Her blood turned to ice. "What? Not actually you. A decoy. Ivy's bringing in someone who matches your build. We'll stage it so Julian thinks he's won. And when he lets his guard down." Alessandro's expression went dark. "I'll be there. And this ends." "That's insane," Viviana whispered. "If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. I'll have 50 men positioned around that garage. Snipers on every roof. The second Julian shows himself, he's mine. And if Roman is there too? If this is the trap Ivy thinks it is?" Alessandro pulled her close, his lips brushing her forehead. "Then I handle Roman. And Vincent. And anyone else who thinks they can take you from me. This is what I do, little one. I win. Always." At 11 p.m., Viviana watched from the security room as the decoy, a woman named Charlotte who worked for Ivy, got into an unmarked car. She wore Viviana's jacket. Had her hair styled the same way. From a distance, in the dark, she was perfect. Alessandro stood behind Viviana, his hand on her shoulder. "This works. I promise." But Viviana couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. That Julian was smarter than they thought. That. Her phone buzzed. "Julian asterisk, did you really think I wouldn't know it wasn't you, Viv? I've memorized every inch of you. The way you walk. The way you breathe. That's not you in the car. Which means you're still with him. Still choosing him over me. Over us. Fine. You want to play games? Let's play. I just sent my men to the one place Alessandro can't protect. Your mother's house. You remember your mother, don't you? Sweet woman. Lives alone on Maple Street. I wonder how long she'll last when 15 armed men kick down her door. The phone clattered from Viviana's hands. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Alessandro was already moving, barking orders, but Viviana knew. Knew with terrible certainty that they were too late. That Julian had outmaneuvered them. That he'd found the one thing Alessandro couldn't protect. The one thing Viviana would sacrifice everything to save. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Hello, baby, Julian's voice was silk and poison. Ready to make a trade? You have 30 minutes, Julian said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. The address is 1247, Maple Street. Come alone. No Alessandro. No bodyguards. No weapons. Just you, walking through the front door like the good girl I know you can be. Do that, and I'll call my men off. Your mother lives. You come home to me where you belong. Everyone's happy. If you hurt her, then you better hurry, Viv. Clock's ticking. The line went dead. Viviana's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Her mother. Her sweet, innocent mother who didn't even know about Julian, about any of this. The woman who'd raised her alone after her father died, who'd worked 3 jobs to put Viviana through school, who still called every Sunday to make sure she was eating properly. Alessandro's hands gripped her shoulders, turning her to face him. Look at me. Viviana, look at me. She did. His eyes were blazing with controlled fury. I'm sending 20 men to your mother's house right now. They'll get there before Julian's people can do anything serious. I promise you. He said I have 30 minutes. Your men can't get across the city in 30 minutes. Not with traffic. Not at this hour. Viviana's voice broke. He knows that. He planned this. He always plans everything. Then we adjust. I'll go myself. He'll kill her the second he sees you. Viviana grabbed Alessandro's shirt, her tears flowing freely now. Don't you understand? This is what he does. He finds what you love and he takes it. He destroys it. And if I don't go, if I don't walk through that door alone, my mother dies because of me. Because I ran to you. Because Alessandro pulled her against his chest, his hand cradling the back of her head. No. No, this is not your fault. This is Julian being a psychopath. This is him proving exactly why he needs to die. But first, my mother needs to live. Viviana pulled back, her decision made. I'm going. Absolutely not. Alessandro. I said no. His voice cracked like a whip. Then, softer, please. Don't ask me to let you walk into a trap. Don't ask me to watch you sacrifice yourself. I can't. I won't. Viviana cupped his face, her thumbs brushing across his cheekbones. You once told me that Isabella tried to leave her monster and it got her killed. That you'd never let another woman suffer like she did. Her voice steadied. My mother is suffering right now. Terrified. Surrounded by armed men. And I'm the only one who can save her. So please. Please, Alessandro. Let me do this. For a long moment, Alessandro said nothing. Then his jaw clenched, and Viviana saw something shift in his eyes. Not surrender. Strategy. You're not going alone, he said finally. You're going wired. Audio and video. And I'm going to be close enough that if Julian so much as breathes wrong, I can put a bullet in his brain before he blinks. He said no weapons. I don't care what he said. You walk in there unarmed, fine. But I'm not sending you to your death, Viviana. We do this smart. We do this together. Or we don't do it at all. Hope flickered in Viviana's chest. You have a plan. Alessandro's smile was cold and absolutely lethal. I always have a plan. 23 minutes later, Viviana stood outside her mother's house, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break her ribs. The small, familiar home looked wrong in the darkness, lights on in every window, shadows moving behind the curtains. Julian's men. She wore a wire so small Alessandro had to tape it to her skin himself, his hands gentle despite the fury in his eyes. He was positioned 2 houses down with Liam and a dozen armed men, watching through the camera hidden in the button of her jacket. I'm here, she whispered, knowing Alessandro could hear her. His voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece. I see you. I've got eyes on 4 men inside. 3 downstairs, 1 with your mother upstairs. The second I give the signal, we move. You understand? Yes. And Viviana? I love you. In case I don't get to say it later. The words hit her like lightning. She'd known, on some level, but hearing him say it, now, in the middle of this nightmare, made everything crystallize into perfect, terrifying clarity. I love you too, she whispered. Then she walked up the steps and opened the door. Julian stood in her mother's living room like he owned it. He'd changed clothes, expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, that smile that had once charmed her and now made her skin crawl. Behind him, tied to a chair, was Viviana's mother. Margaret's face was streaked with tears, her mouth gagged, but her eyes, oh, her eyes were blazing with fury. There she is, Julian said warmly, spreading his arms like he was welcoming her home. My beautiful, stubborn Viv. You have no idea how much I've missed you. Let her go. Viviana's voice was steady. Stronger than she felt. I'm here. I came alone like you asked. Now let my mother go and we can talk. Talk. Julian laughed. Oh, sweetheart. We're way past talking. But sure. Let's start with this. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and smiled. There. Called off my men. Your mother's house is no longer under siege. See? I keep my promises. Then untie her. In a minute. First, I want to hear you say it. Julian stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. Say you made a mistake. Say you're sorry for running. Say you love me and you're coming home. Viviana's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct screamed at her to spit in his face, to fight, to run. But her mother was 10 feet away, terrified and helpless, and Viviana would burn in hell before she let Julian hurt her. I'm sorry, she forced out. I made a mistake. You don't mean it. Julian's expression darkened. You're just saying what I want to hear. Like always. Lying to me. Manipulating me. Making me the villain when all I've ever done is love you. His hand shot out, grabbing her throat, and Viviana heard Alessandro's voice explode in her ear, now. Glass shattered. The front window exploded inward as Alessandro came through it like an avenging angel, gun raised, his face a mask of cold fury. Liam and his men breached the back door simultaneously, and suddenly the room was chaos. Julian's men reached for their weapons, but they were too slow. Alessandro's team moved with military precision, 3 shots, 3 bodies hitting the floor. The man upstairs with Margaret never even made it to the stairs before Liam put him down. And Julian, Julian still had his hand around Viviana's throat, his other hand suddenly holding a gun pressed against her temple. "I knew it," he hissed in her ear. "I knew you'd bring him. I knew you'd choose him over me. Over us." His grip tightened. "But if I can't have you, Viv, nobody can." Alessandro froze, his gun aimed directly at Julian's head. But he couldn't take the shot. Not without risking Viviana. "Let her go, Julian." Alessandro's voice was ice. "This is between you and me now. Let her go and we'll settle this like men." "Like men?" Julian laughed, high and manic. "You think you're a man, Moretti? You're a thug. A criminal. And you poisoned her against me. Made her think she deserved better than." Margaret made a sound behind her gag. A furious, muffled sound. And in that split second of distraction, Viviana moved. She'd learned self-defense as a teenager. Her mother had insisted after her father died, wanting her to be able to protect herself. Viviana had forgotten most of it over the years, but muscle memory didn't forget. She drove her elbow back into Julian's solar plexus, dropped her weight, and twisted out of his grip exactly like her instructor had taught her. The gun went off, the bullet whizzed past her ear, so close she felt the heat, and then Alessandro was moving. One shot. Clean. Precise. Julian's gun clattered to the floor as he grabbed his shoulder, screaming. Alessandro was on him in seconds, his gun pressed under Julian's chin. "Give me one reason," he growled. "One reason why I shouldn't end you right now." Julian's face was white with pain and fear. "My father, the DA, you can't. Your father can't protect you anymore. I've spent the last 12 hours making sure of that." Alessandro's smile was terrifying. "I have recordings of every illegal deal he's made. Every bribe he's taken. Every law he's broken. And if anything happens to me, to Viviana, to anyone I love, those recordings go public. Your father goes to prison. Your family loses everything. You lose everything." He leaned closer. "Or you disappear. Tonight. You leave the country. You never contact Viviana again. You never even think her name. And maybe, I let you live. Choose." Julian's face crumpled. All the arrogance, all the entitlement, all the false confidence, gone. Just a pathetic man who'd finally met someone he couldn't control. "I'll go," he whispered. "I'll disappear. Just don't kill me. Please." Alessandro looked at Viviana. "Your call, little one. He lives or dies. Your choice." Viviana looked at Julian, really looked at him. This man had terrorized her. Hurt her. Made her question her own worth. He'd put her mother in danger. He'd tried to kill her. But he was also broken. Pathetic. And killing him wouldn't erase what he'd done. Wouldn't heal her scars. "Let him go," she said quietly. "Let him run. And if he ever comes back, if he ever contacts me again." She met Julian's eyes. "Then you can kill him." Alessandro nodded to Liam, who hauled Julian to his feet. "You have 1 hour to get to the airport. After that, I hunt you. Understand?" Julian nodded frantically. Liam dragged him out. And then it was over. Viviana ran to her mother, her hands shaking as she untied the ropes and removed the gag. Margaret pulled her into a crushing hug, both of them sobbing, holding each other like they'd never let go. "I'm so sorry," Viviana whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Hush." Margaret pulled back, cupping Viviana's face. "You have nothing to apologize for. That man was a monster. And this one," she looked at Alessandro, who stood a respectful distance away. This one saved both our lives. Alessandro inclined his head. Mrs. Bellucci. I'm sorry we had to meet under these circumstances. Margaret studied him for a long moment. Then, to Viviana's shock, she smiled. You love my daughter. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. I do. And you'll protect her. Keep her safe from men like Julian. With my life. Margaret nodded, satisfied. Then I suppose I should get used to having a mafia boss for a son-in-law. She patted Viviana's cheek. You always did have expensive taste, sweetheart. Viviana laughed through her tears. Mom. Go on. Go talk to him. I'll make tea. Lord knows we all need it. Outside, under the stars, Viviana and Alessandro stood in the quiet street. The chaos was over. Julian was gone. And somehow, impossibly, they'd both survived. The families vote tomorrow, Viviana said quietly. What happens then? Alessandro pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. Then they vote. And whatever they decide, we handle it. Together. You might lose everything. I already have everything. He tilted her chin up, his eyes soft. I have you. Everything else is just noise. Viviana rose on her toes and kissed him. It was slow and sweet and tasted like hope. Like a future she'd stopped believing in. When they pulled apart, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. Move in with me. Not because you're hiding. Not because you need protection. But because I need you. Because waking up without you feels wrong. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm selfish enough to want you close. Always. Yes, Viviana whispered. Yes to all of it. Behind them, Ivy's voice cut through the moment. Hate to interrupt the romance, but you're going to want to see this. She held up her phone. On the screen was a news alert, DA Richard Cross under investigation for corruption. Federal charges pending, ****. Alessandro's smile was slow and satisfied. Told you I had a plan. 3 months later, Viviana stood in Alessandro's, their, penthouse, watching the sunset paint the city gold. The families had voted. Alessandro had lost his position as heir. His father had cut ties, choosing power over his son. But Alessandro had built something new. Something better. An empire that didn't rely on his father's name. And Viviana had been beside him every step of the way. Hey, little one. Alessandro's arms wrapped around her from behind. What are you thinking about? About how 3 months ago, I was running for my life. And now. She turned in his arms. Now I'm home. You are home, Alessandro murmured, kissing her forehead. You're my home. And I'm never letting you go. Viviana smiled, rising on her toes to kiss him properly. Outside, the city hummed with life and danger and possibility. But inside, wrapped in Alessandro's arms, Viviana had never felt safer. She was loved. She was protected. She was free. And she was finally, blessedly, safe. And there you have it, beautiful people. Viviana and Alessandro got their happily ever after, Julian got what he deserved, and love conquered all. What did you think? Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment from this story. Was it that first kiss? The final confrontation? The moment Alessandro said, I love you. I want to hear everything. And if you love this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I've got so many more emotional, addictive stories coming your way. Thank you for being here. Thank you for reading. You're all amazing, and I'll see you in the next one, ***.